Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guest, we have Dr. Andrea Rivera. She was an entrepreneur and is currently an acupuncturist and founder of the Chillax Om Foundation nonprofit. She has been a frontline healthcare worker throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Since 2016, Dr. Andrea has been providing the auricular acupuncture NADA protocol along with teaching self-care stress management, herbal medicine with diet therapy, and pain relief practices. She has delivered over 9,000 treatments at various places like in Los Angeles, California facilities, including LA County USC Wellness Center, Venice Family Clinic, Pacific Coast Community Acupuncture Clinic, and her own private practices in Hollywood and Pacific Palisades, California. It took Dr. Andrea 20 years to completely recover her health, financial stability, and establish a new career as an acupuncturist by 2020, just in time to face a second global crisis from COVID-19. Post September 11th, after her downtown New York jewelry store business closed, she had moved from New York to California in 2003 to start a new life with limited resources. The next 4 years of post 9/11 life reinvention demands took a toll on her health and family relationships, causing her own personal experience of PTSD with depression, anxiety, insomnia, and chronic pain that lasted for 3 years. After trying allopathic methods and medications to alleviate her PTSD symptoms, she sought acupuncture and the mind body practices of daily yoga, Qigong, transcendental meditation, and the herbal medicine for relief. Dr. Andrea is what I would call an extraordinary American, and I'm honored to have her on this show. Dr. Andrea, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Dr.
Hi,
Andrea, it's really an honor to have you on this show. Thank you for taking the time to do this podcast with me.
my pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So, Dr. Andrea, I know that you're an acupuncturist. You've been a successful entrepreneur in the past, and you're also into nonprofit. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Well, I'm really the classic American dream story. So I come from a regular family in suburbia. Both of my parents, they came from single mom homes, and they used the opportunity of education to build lives for themselves. So my dad, for example, was the first person and only person of his brothers and sisters to get a college degree and become a professional. So I followed in those footsteps. I got a scholarship to go to college myself, and that led me to New York City, where I studied at Pace University. And so while I was there on scholarship as a student, I saw some opportunities to create my own business, really because I was hungry. uh, there wasn't a lot of extra money for a scholarship kid at the university. And I was living on pasta and peanut butter and jelly and dollar cups of soup, you know, and $1.35 was the cost of a slice of pizza back then. This is 1992. And so I had gone to a great high school where I had a great arts program. I had learned how to make jewelry there as a craftsman. And so I had that background. And then I was able to get some work making jewelry, and I was able to start selling jewelry that I made at flea markets in New York to make extra money. And then I had heard about, they call it an open sea day, where stores want to discover a new designer where they can have an exclusive. Nobody else sells them because they don't know anybody else. They were discovered by that store. And so I was taken on as far as having the great opportunity and mentorship by Henry Bendel. Really beautiful, exclusive store. It's inside of a mansion in Manhattan, and they only had 3 locations. They had New York, Manhattan, and Columbus, Ohio. And I'm forgetting, I want to say it's in Chicago, but I was taken on to be a designer there and sell my jewelry in Henry Bendel when I was only 19 years old, going to college. So that was a tremendous experience. So by the time I graduated college, I was already in my own business, designing and manufacturing jewelry with the opportunity and the mentorship I had. Then I was referred to a showroom. It's like how an actor has an agent, you have a sales rep. And then I was carried in department stores and boutiques across the country, and then also globally in Japan as well. So all of the biggest name stores that you've heard of, Macy's, Nordstrom, Fortunoff, Bloomingdale's, the Bloomingdale's of Japan, you could say Daimaru. I sold to Barney's New York in Japan. Those were all of my clients from just being
Wow.
a kid, going to scholarship, right? University. And so I think it's one of those classic, American stories of, a lot of hard work, when the opportunities came, I just really did my very best. And I had a lot of great mentorship too, to take the opportunities and run with them as much as I could. And so when we are discovered that way, as an artist, doors can open and things can really grow and get bigger. And so I had a wonderful, from 1992 all the way up through September 11, 2001. It was quite a wonderful experience with me building my business, selling to other stores. I had my own boutique store in Manhattan on Sullivan Street. The company was called my first and middle name, Andrea Renee. And so I had a store, and I had one of the early website stores. I had my first website store to the public in 1999, which was pretty cool and innovative at the time. And I was a spokesperson for my company. And so I got a lot of editorial press. I had some celebrity clients too that purchased my jewelry, actors, musicians, people like Julianne Moore or Drew Barrymore had come into my store. So that starts to get some attention. And so I got some press for that. So I was featured in magazines. So editorial is not an ad, it's when someone features you in an article. And so that can carry, more weight. It's like you're being recommended by the publications. So, publications like In Style Magazine or Entertainment Weekly or New York Magazine. I was in the New York Times, that kind of stuff. So that gave my website exposure, to build my business selling direct at a mail order to the public then across the country outside of the people that could physically walk in my store or outside of the retailer department stores that carried my jewelry. And then that was going on for a while. And then September 11th was a big hit, being located in Manhattan. My store was downtown in the SOHO district neighborhood. So that's
Wow.
south of Houston. And so after September 11th, Manhattan was pretty much closed below 14th Street. And it took very, very long, actually. It was several months. The towers were burning, the smoke. If you were downtown, you had to show ID. It was a militarized zone. So, there was military soldiers, tanks on the street. It was a, disaster zone from the terrorism. And so the way that it worked with the wholesale markets, you have a showroom and trade shows. So when things like September 11th are not happening, people come from all over the world to come to Manhattan to shop for their department stores and boutiques. So all of the clients, but also all of the tourists that would come to, shop in my boutique downtown, because Soho was a popular neighborhood for tourists to come to, and also the local residents, people that lived on the Upper West Side, Columbus Avenue neighborhoods. You could just take the train or a taxi, to come down to Soho, hang out for the day. But after September 11th, you could say nobody wanted to go downtown, right? And actually, they weren't even allowed to go downtown, especially in the beginning, immediately after that had happened. And so that shuts down all of your normal life and business. And it's like the COVID-19 pandemic experience. No one had lockdowns before. People weren't told that their business wasn't essential and they couldn't open. Those are unprecedented, unimaginable things.
No,
And
totally.
so September 11th for me was that same kind of unprecedented, surprising unimaginable. Now people can't even walk into your neighborhood, so nobody's going to shop in your store. And then, you're not going to have the same kind of attendance at trade shows and markets. And so, just like in the COVID-19 lockdowns, if you close your business and you have no sales, how long can you keep your business afloat? Because again, it's like there are expenses that have to be paid, and also there are the cost of doing business, the investments that you already made that you're not going to get the return on investment on.
Yeah.
So within a company like mine, when you're a designer, but then you're manufacturing the product, so then you have to invest in materials and tools to make the jewelry collection that you designed, right? So you show the samples to buyers from boutiques and department stores, and they give you orders. You have to finance all of the materials and tools and the assembly to order the product that they ordered. And so you are also working to keep your prices competitive as well. Especially through the 90s, there was the revolution of more manufacturing being done outside of the United States. And so, to stay competitive, what you usually do is you can use quantity discounts. So you buy certain materials in bulk so that the actual cost price per piece, like in a jewelry, cost of the stones or what have you, right, can be lower because you bought a whole bunch of certain product. But that's all anticipatory that you're going to sell that and make the return on investment. So again, based upon how you've diversified, right? So one of the mistakes that entrepreneurs can make is that they reinvest all of their profits back into the business. When we look at things like a generational wealth, like financial wealth plan, then maybe you would make other investments to shelter some of your profits, to shelter some of your cash into assets. And then depending upon it, I had started my business so young at 19, I didn't necessarily have I would say maybe business acumen advisory or financial management advisory. So I made very basic decisions that weren't necessarily so bulletproof in the face of something like September 11th or a COVID-19 experience.
Like September 11th, like nobody could have ever imagined it. Like that
No
could,
one.
like, even if you're like the best entrepreneur or businessman, like,
Yeah.
and you're in Manhattan downtown, like there's no way you
Yeah.
could predict that something like this could come. Like normally everybody has like a contingency plan, but this is like even like
But how big is your contingency plan is the question. Because again, in an unprecedented historic event like that, how long will your resources carry you? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? If you're not making any sales for how long? Then when you start to sell again, are you making enough sales to make up for all of the deficit that you have? And so are you going into debt? Because you can blow through your cash resources, and then you can start to blow through your debt resources too. So lines of credit. For example, I didn't use any, because again, we have different means of financing a business and growing a business. Since my business grew literally out of the closet in my 1-bedroom, 3rd floor walk-up cheap apartment on 26th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue, I didn't have a pitch deck. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't get venture capital investors. I didn't have angel investors. It just came from literally earning the money myself, reinvesting in my business. And with the success that I had bought real estate property. So I had a condominium in New York downtown in the West Village. There are some opportunities in business, such as when you're manufacturing retail product like jewelry, it's called factoring. If I get an order from a department store, I can give it to a factor company. They're going to give me the cash up front, going to take a percentage, right, of that order, but I don't have to wait for 30 or 60 days after my shipment date. So the way that the jewelry business worked was I would have a trade show, let's say. I have the holiday trade show in August. I have all of these orders now. I have a month or two to manufacture and ship those to the store. And then depending on the terms that the store offers, I would get paid in 30 to 60 days. So I have all of this upfront investment to make a collection to offer for sale that will be made to order in the August market. And then I have 1 to 2 months to manufacture all of that merchandise. And then I'm not going to get paid sometimes until December or January of the next year. So what that means is you have a 6-month wait time to get the full return on your investment that you made. And again, when you have the big markets like the holiday market in August or the spring market in January, you're making 75% of your sales for the whole year. So if you have September 11th interrupt that, some orders are canceled and nobody shops in the spring, you lost 75% or 100% of your entire income. And you're sitting on thousands of dollars that you invested to be able to manufacture these orders based on what you usually sell to your clients.
Wow.
And so now you have to wait.
Wow. So that particular event, since you were in downtown Manhattan, like with your boutique and jewelry business, like
Yeah.
that had a significant effect on the sales and all of that. And it just
Yeah.
went in a downward spiral from there.
Yeah. So I really understand what happened so in depth as far as what the lockdown non-essential businesses experienced during COVID-19. I know what it means to have your business have no sales.
Yeah,
And
like the COVID-19 was pretty much like on a national and global level,
yes,
businesses closing. Like
yes.
what is your reaction when you noticed in the beginning months all the businesses closing and this having a similar effect to like what happened with 9/11?
Well, that's really why I decided to create my nonprofit charity foundation, Chillaxone Foundation, because when these types of events that we couldn't possibly plan for, when this type of trauma comes to your doorstep, it creates a post-traumatic stress disorder response. So you have bigger problems that are unimaginable, that you're overwhelmed by, and you don't know how to face. So it's the highest level of stress that you can imagine, because also people, people died in September 11th. People died in COVID-19 too. People lost their loved ones, their family members, in addition to the financial impact too.
I mean, like I myself had COVID in like
Yeah,
August of 2021, and there
yeah,
was a time in which I didn't think I was going to make it either, you know?
yeah. Yeah, so some people got really sick. And again, this is when we get into that realm. So what does post-traumatic stress disorder mean, right? It means that the normal time that someone would be able to calm down and their nervous system would normally reset, which is usually, if we have a stressful event, something challenging, not to that scale, right?
Hmm.
Like let's say I had a flat tire, a fender bender with my car, or, maybe I was laid off, right? You can be, stressed out and shaken up. And you might have some of those symptoms, insomnia, lack of appetite, more appetite, the stress symptoms, nausea or headaches or, all those kinds of things. But you can come back to yourself usually in a couple of weeks. But post-traumatic is post that trauma shaken event, you actually stay triggered. So you stay emotionally reactive. Your physical body's having trouble letting go of being stuck in the fight or flight stress response. And that drives the immunity down. And that affects mental clarity, it affects sleep, right? It also affects the quality of our relationships, because when we're in fight or flight, we're emotionally reactive. We're not logical in the forebrain, being reasonable, able to listen, right? Open. We're not being analytical. We're being defensive and emotionally reactive. And the other thing that people tend to not understand, I really love the film It's a Wonderful Life. It's a classic film in the United States about a character that has a post-traumatic stress disorder response to some really challenging circumstances. And one of the things it shows too is that people can become hypersensitive to noise, to light, to sound. And then it makes them really have a very hard time being out in the normal world. How can you get away, especially living in an urban environment? I live in Los Angeles, California. We have 10 million people plus here. Do you think it's a little noisy?
No, yeah, totally.
Bright lights, street lights, headlights, right? So if your nervous system is essentially hyperactive, it's really hard to be in the environment that you live in, because it keeps triggering you into that really heightened stress response, elevated stress chemicals, right? You're not making what you need as far as the right levels of hormones or neurotransmitters that would keep you grounded and calm and well functioning.
So,
You're just
so
making stress chemicals and you're hyper emotionally reactive. Not a good mix,
So, Andrea, I wanted to ask you, like, so from 9/11 and that catastrophe that happened in regards to like your business closing and all of that, like, how did you what was the story of you transitioning from that to being the acupuncturist that you are today? Could you tell the audience a little bit more about that?
Yes, because I think one of the things I want to touch on is like, people talk a lot about what their purpose in life is or what their mission is. And actually, I would invite everybody to consider, what are the problems that are at your doorstep? What are the problems that are calling to you? What are the problems that you had to solve that affected your family, right? When you really are looking for your purpose, what are your problems, right? Because if we learn to solve them ourselves, then we can search out and help other people dealing with the same problems that we had to solve for ourselves. So I'll go back one moment to 1994, because while I was growing my jewelry business and I was finishing my bachelor's degree at Pace University, I was coming home from my retail jewelry store and I was hit by a taxi cab as a pedestrian crossing the street. So the taxi was going 40 miles an hour into my
All right.
body. That's a 90% chance of death. And so because of that accident, I have some orthopedic injuries that I manage. And so when we look at that type of orthopedic physical trauma, right, certain types of work and lifestyles will make that worse or make that better.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, when I'm a jewelry designer, I could be sitting at a desk designing pieces.
Yeah.
It can be a stationary job. It's like people that start their business on their laptop. They're sitting in front of a computer all day. Now, even if you didn't have any, orthopedic injuries, scar tissue, right, chronic pain problems, maybe you've noticed sitting all day without moving around isn't necessarily healthy for anybody.
Yeah.
But for some people with issues like chronic pain, it's worse. So again, as we have birthdays, as we get older and we're working in certain types of careers based on what our health history is, it can be that great term, like, is it sustainable or not to be doing this job that requires this much sedentary work? And even if you get into the ergonomic desk and, the sitting standing desk, it can still be kind of challenging, especially certain types of jobs require repetitive movement, using my hands a lot, whether it's, making samples or drawings or, other people, the typing, the writing. So you have to keep kind of troubleshooting. How can you continue to do your job in a way that doesn't keep causing you greater levels of pain? So with that increasing from year after year, that was making me search out some solutions for chronic pain issues that I had from my car accident. And then when you have invested in something like a hard asset like property, and if it's in a place like New York, even after September 11th, property values were still worth something.
Yeah, it's in New York,
It's New
It,
York,
it's
you
always
know.
gonna.
It's an international city. There's always going to be certain people there, certain industries doing business, right? It's a small island, Manhattan Island. There's just not that many places that are available for people to buy. And so you have opportunities, and this is something like as far as a generational wealth type of plan. So a lot of people go to urban cities with high populations that have a higher cost of living because there's some great work opportunities or great study opportunities. Like I had a great study opportunity turned into work opportunities, but it's very expensive, really high cost of living. And so one of the plans is that people will invest in property there that they can sell, and then you can move to a place where the cost of living is much less expensive. You get to leverage your asset in another environment where you can make more gains and have more choices. So what saved me, gave me like the lifeboat off of the Titanic was to sell my condo. And then I could move to a place like Los Angeles that, coming from New York, even after September 11th, made property values go down about 30%. Los Angeles was still half price for me. So you'll
That's
get a lot of people that'll relocate from cities like New York, because of that reason. And then also too, like looking from LA out to other states, right? Other cities in the country, a lot of places I can go will be maybe half or 25% of my cost of living here. And then again, that's going to be like 10% of the cost of living and doing business in New York, right? It's all relative. And so that's a good thing for people to understand too. And then if you're watching the real estate market, right, things are cyclical, just like the economy is cyclical. And so you can look for the right opportunity to buy into a market. So, for somebody like me in 1996, when I bought my condo, it was $280,000. Before September 11th, it was $1 million property. After September 11th, it was still $700,000, right? And now it's like more than double that. I'm talking about, over 20 years ago.
yeah.
So again, there are unique times where you can make investments in markets. It'll never be that price again. And that's the thing about, generational wealth, family wealth, right? It's you can pass down these valuable assets, right, to your family members. So that gave me the opportunity to be able to relocate to Los Angeles. In the beginning, I still continued my jewelry business here, but honestly, it never recaptured the sales that it had before September 11th, even though I got sales reps in Los Angeles and Seattle and also London. All of that didn't make up the kind of business that I had in New York by itself before September 11th. And also my chronic pain levels were building up from, all of that stress and movement and, all of the other types of recovery actions that you take to try to triage, save your business kind of thing. And then my husband was actually my business partner through all of this, and he was in that car accident with me, honestly, too. And so again, financial stress can take a toll on health. And when I talked about that PTSD issue, we were young. We didn't really get that explained to us. We didn't know why we were more emotionally reactive. We didn't really know. And that makes it harder, right, to be in a healthy relationship and interact well when your physical health is down and your nervous system is hyperreactive and you have all of these stressors to deal with too. And so, there is the point where you realize that even if you wanted to, it's hard for you to continue what you're doing, but you're not necessarily enjoying what you're doing anyway.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have the maturity, the support system, the education, the community, the healthcare team to help you navigate how to, how to heal your relationships yourself, how to help your business survive. So, I think it's a combination of naivete, ignorance, and a lack of really seeking out the proper community support, mentorship support, and healthcare team. And if you don't have all that in place, you can topple over, you can crumble. So, businesses can be left dissolved, sold, or, same thing, marriages can end in divorce. And then, in
I mean,
my case,
the number one cause is like, like financial issues in
yeah,
marriages, like for
yeah.
divorce.
Because also too, it's the from the financial stress, because now we're not living in the jungle, right? Running from lions and tigers and bears and dinosaurs. So when we feel threatened, because that's the thing about post-traumatic stress disorder, the trauma is feeling like your life is threatened. And then you can have smaller triggers that bring you back to that my life is threatened state of being, response, reaction, physiologically, mentally, and emotionally. And that's the problem. Until you learn how to heal yourself, your mind, body, and spirit together, you can have, like, it took me a while to be able to cross the street. Even hearing the traffic would take you to that place of really having the physiological, mental, emotional response of like having a gun to your head, like having your life threatened. And so financial stress is really a big, big culprit because we base our sense of security in life on our financial health, many of us.
So,
And then we can judge ourselves, against falling short of right goals that we have there because we don't feel safe.
So, Dr. Andrea, I'd like a question. So, in 2020, the pandemic happened. There were like millions of people all across the world, and including the United States. Like, there's so many Americans that had their businesses, and they just got wiped out. And
Mhm.
not only did they have to fend with financial stress, they had to worry about getting sick as well. And I'm sure many of them had a lot of PTSD. So,
Yeah.
what advice would you give Americans who went through the horrors of like losing their entire business, losing their savings, having their businesses shut down? How can they turn it around and get back to success and all of that?
Yes. Yeah, so that was my response as an essential healthcare worker. I could go to work. And so one of the things that acupuncture can do, it can reset your nervous system. We actually have acupuncturists without borders. We can show up in the trauma zones and we can treat people, reset their nervous system, get them out of the fight or flight PTSD response. And so that's done with auricular ear acupuncture. So that's why I created my foundation. I can raise money and I can go and I can give people, because again, if you lost your job and you lost your business, maybe you don't have money to pay for co-pays, maybe you don't even have insurance anymore, you don't even have access to essential health care. So I made tons of YouTube videos. I have like about 82 videos. I have tons of self-care education. It's one of my specialties within my practice. So I really love to empower people. You don't have to have an acupuncture treatment with acupuncture needles stuck in your ear to turn your stress button off, to flip the switch and get out of fight or flight PTSD. You can use breathing techniques. You can use Qigong and yoga movement techniques. You can use guided imagery, meditation. You can also use interactions with nature as well. And besides that too, some of the basics like what are you eating? Are you drinking enough water? Are you having meals regularly? If we let ourselves get too hungry, we'll make more stress chemicals. The adrenal glands kick in so we don't pass out. And also how we breathe is really important too. Usually when we're stressed, because we have this immediate, it's a very old response physiologically to hunch forward, to breathe shallow. You don't get more air into the bottom of your lungs. You keep carbon dioxide, makes us tougher, more irritable.
Hmm.
And then we tense all of the muscles because it's like making a shield around ourselves, our inner organs, right? We get all of these stress chemicals going out to the arms and the legs so we can fight or we can run away. And we get all of the tension. So we feel stress along the vagus nerve, tightness in the throat or the chest, the nausea in the stomach, right? Tightness in the abdomen. It's hard for us to breathe because that diaphragm muscle gets spasmed, so the lungs can't expand. And then we stay more irritable and anxious from not breathing fully, cleaning out our lungs too. And then we stay tense, right? We get locked in the body. And so we can break all of that pattern up, even just to notice, to open the chest, to breathe fully, deeply into your hand, into your abdomen. When you feel that you're stressed, start to do a complete breath. Breathe into your hand and your abdomen. Roll your shoulders back, open your chest. There's some really simple breathing techniques. One of my friends, Sean Tiberio, he's a Marine veteran. He has a great book that he wrote, because one of the things you can use, a 4x4 breathing technique that is used in the military. He teaches at his retreats I've done with him. His book is Fortifying Your Mind. He talks about tactics that the Marine soldiers use. If you inhale to the count of 4, hold your breath for 4 counts, and exhale to the count of 4. You can calm and focus your nervous system, focus your mind. You can become more present, get out of these, rolling thoughts that are triggering these big emotional reactions. That's one of the things that the soldiers use literally when they're in battle, snipers, So we can be educated in very simple ways, like a 4x4 breathing technique,
Wow.
to take control. And I teach a lot. There's another one from yoga, ancient breathing technique. It's 4-7-8. You inhale to the count of 4, and then you hold for 7 counts, and then you exhale to the count of 8. So because each of the numbers are going up, the hold is longer and the exhale's longer. You're literally slowing down your heart rate and relaxing your nervous system. And even just doing that in 4 cycles, 4 times in a row, you can be calm. If you have trouble sleeping, insomnia can help you fall asleep. If you're having a panic attack with heart palpitations, it can help you stop that from happening. And so these are the types of things that I teach as part of the self-care education. That's part of my Wellness Hour program. So I offer an hour of ear acupuncture treatment, guided imagery meditation, these types of breathing techniques, and then some movement activities. One of the simplest ones in Qigong is body tapping. And then we call it, these are warm-ups for any type of martial arts practice. You can shake the tree. You can just stand and bounce, right? Shake all the tension out of the body. Before we had things like rebound or trampolines, we just
Yeah.
did that, okay? But what it does is it shakes all of the spasm muscles, resets the nervous system, gets the circulation going, and it also drives out any inflammation. Inflammation's not electrically conductive. The energy in our body that needs to move around to animate us doesn't get to move if we're all stuck, right? And so these are very simple things that people can do. They can shake the tree, they can body tap, right? They can
Yeah.
change the way they breathe. What I love about those, I teach those a lot because you could do that anywhere. If you're at work and you don't want anybody to see you to make fun of you looking like what I just looked like,
I mean, no,
go,
it's if it's
go, but
effective at releasing stress, it is effective, because
yeah,
I mean, to
and
be honest,
it can help people if they see your example. But if you don't want to deal with that, We're all going to go to the restroom. When you go into the bathroom, you can do those things.
I mean, Andrea, like
Privacy.
at the bottom of at the bottom of the day, like on the day altogether, we know
Yeah.
that financial stress is now the number one cause of
Yeah.
stress to all so many people. Like they're living paycheck to paycheck, and it's
Yeah.
really difficult. Like while we're trying to get our finances figured,
Yeah.
we have to figure out how to control our mind and our body and
Correct.
influence it, and then through that, like look at everything from a responding type of view instead of a
Correct.
reacting point of view, right?
Correct. Correct. And so there are things that we cannot control. Nobody was in control of COVID-19 mandates, lockdowns. Nobody was in control, right?
Yeah.
Same with September 11th. Nobody was in control at the World Trade Center, melted down literally. So what we can control, exactly what you said, what we need to focus on is what we can control, which is our response. And so if we start with the physical body first, because the stresses are mental, emotional, right? These thoughts. So we dread things like, oh, you're right, I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment, right? I'll be homeless. Like, how am I going to eat? Am I going to be able to pay my car payment? How am I going to provide for my family, right? And you can see this very, very horrible future, right? That you're dreading, right? That you're afraid of living. And that can really create the physical effect of the fight or flight. If you keep having those negative thoughts and triggering those negative emotions, it creates a physiological effect. So you're going to make different levels of stress chemicals and neurotransmitters and hormones that will make you physically sick, period. And so exactly as you said, we need to stand up and stop, break the pattern. So it's like changing the channel on a TV, right? And it takes practice. How do you interrupt it? So are you going to use one of those breathing techniques? Are you going to listen to a guided imagery meditation? Are you going to take a walk in a park? Are you going to go to a gym or exercise in your house? Right? Because again, if we're going to get out of our head, that's making these, very fear-based, right? Horrifying images, creating really intense fear-based emotions, we have to stop it and shift and change our state. But we can do that. Music and movies help too. So you play the opposite funny comedy show. So I used to pick some shows. I was watching comedians in cars getting coffee,
Mhm.
right? Like I would make myself watch something that would make me laugh, right?
Yeah.
So that I wouldn't get stuck in feeling fear or loss or grief all the time, to the point that my physical body was sick. And then that's when you get into things like you can get into, clinical depression. Is now my physical body isn't making the right levels of certain hormones and neurotransmitter chemicals because I've been in the habit of surrendering to and dwelling in the negative, fearful, frustrating, or angry thoughts, right?
Hmm.
And so it really is on us. And then, again, when we look at things like what are you reading, what are you listening to, because we become, right, the 5 people we spend the most time with, that can not just be people in real life, like you're a 3D person, right? You're another human being, but that could be the people that I listen to, that I watch on TV. So one of the biggest things that I noticed with my patients, treating patients all through the COVID-19 pandemic, the ones that did better were the ones that were not watching the news all day, seeing all of these stories that really, right, reinforced the fear and triggered more of the anxiety,
I mean, that's
more
how
of the
they make their
dread.
profits at the end of the day, right?
Yes, yes, because they lock you in. Now you're so afraid. You're dependent upon seeing the news to tell you what to do. You're so freaked out, right? But that doesn't help you function as a human being. So that was one of the things, is like, how many hours are you spending on your phone, the computer, and in front of the TV? And how many hours are you watching things that are telling you about horrible things happening in the world that you should be afraid of and angry about? These
That's
are
literally the,
really important questions to ask.
I would say for most people, it's more than they would like to admit, actually.
Correct. And that's why it's really important to ask. Because if you, like I actually literally I haven't had a TV since August of 2019.
Wow.
It's been incredible. All of the
Most people
things that I
cannot.
have time to learn, all of the books I have time to read. And then when I do watch a film, it's that I chose it on purpose as a special event. I'm not like just gonna go home and flop in front of the TV and zombie out in front of whatever I settle for that's on. It became much more intentional.
Nice.
Because then I got to stream it on my computer, and then do I want it to be on a bigger monitor? Do I want to watch it on my laptop? And then, it's like it's more choices, that are intentional. And why am I watching this, right? Because it's also how you choose your friends and the conversations you're having, because complaining is physiologically addictive too. You get a temporary hit of oxytocin, it's called, and so you have a moment where you feel better, that you were understood, that you commiserated and you complained, you shared the misery.
Hmm.
But that's a temporary hit, and then it wears off, and you know what? You're more miserable, and you're more afraid, and you're more grief-stricken, and you're more frustrated, angry, bitter, and unforgiving. It's bad.
Complaining is almost like a drug in a way because it's
It
it's
is a
addictive.
drug. And so are the electronics, so are the phones. This is a dopamine addiction device. Dopamine also comes from cocaine. Every time you get a notification, you get a hit of dopamine. When people play video games, you get such a high hit of dopamine that you're no longer able to enjoy the smaller hits like a sunset or like a nice conversation with a person. It's not enough of a hit like the big drug of the video game, giving you a huge amount of dopamine at once. So you train yourself to only want the big hits, and then you get disassociated, disconnected from all of the small moments in life. Or we could get dopamine from a sense of fulfillment, a sense
Hmm.
of accomplishing a goal, a sense of having a beautiful love and connection relationship, enjoying nature becomes less stimulating, less meaningless. And so that makes the electronic use very addictive too. And also too, there's a state of functioning that the brain goes into from the exposure to watching the TV. It literally makes us less functional, more zombie brain, literally.
Hmm.
That's not really good,
No, totally, Andrea.
right? And you get used to it. And then that becomes too, like I think the COVID-19 experience for a lot of people too, it takes more effort to learn the breathing techniques, to get some exercises to do at home, to make yourself go on the walk when you don't feel like it, to take control of your emotions, make yourself watch the comedy if you don't feel like it, right? You have
Hmm.
to be very disciplined and willful and really understand, if I don't make myself do these things, I'm 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 going to make myself sick, right? There's no
Yeah,
there's no two ways about it. You're either helping yourself or you're literally killing yourself. If
Andrea,
we really get that, it's
every
important.
everything you're saying, like it's simple and like we all like have just started, like we knew about it at different points of our life, but you're like giving it in a concise, like concentrated form, and I'm loving that. I wanted to ask you about like your nonprofit, the Chillax Om Foundation, and more about that. If you could tell me and the audience about it and like the work that you do with it.
Yes, yes. So I have a private practice clinic, and I also offer retreat experiences, and I use those as fundraisers. So then I can be a pop-up clinic, and I can also offer hours at my clinic and other locations where people can come and get treatment for free. So the
Amazing.
wellness hour is happening at my office on Sundays here in Pacific Palisades. And then people can contact me to offer places for me to go and pop up for 6 weeks. So usually treatment plans and acupuncture are 6 to 8 weeks in order to make a new pattern that your body is used to living in. And so I designed the scholarship to be a 6 week program. And then I teach people these types of techniques to change their own state. So when you graduate from the 6-week program, you're in control. You've become your own medicine. That's what I'm teaching you how to do. So then you're not dependent upon getting the treatment. So when you're faced with these, really difficult, right, stressful circumstances, there are always going to be challenges in life. We can't control that, but we get to control how we've learned how to help ourselves and how to respond. So that's this concept of learning how to become your own medicine. So at will, as needed, you treat yourself. You know what to do. You know how to respond. So you don't
So
have to settle for being rattled.
So, Dr. Andrea, like for like the audience, like I know, can you tell them a little bit more about acupuncture and its benefits to the nervous system? Because I know it's like a new, fairly new concept to many.
Yes, yes, yes. So some people have never had acupuncture, and so these are tiny needles. They're very tiny. They're like one strand of hair. So it's not like an ice pick. It's not like a sewing needle. I like to identify that. And then the feeling of the tiny needle when it's inserted, it can be like a mosquito bite. Sometimes you don't even feel certain needles. They go into bigger muscles. You wouldn't even notice it was put in there. So you can feel a little bit of a pinch, but what it does, especially for the ear acupuncture, we're talking to that vagus nerve that's in charge of that stress response that runs from the back of the head, the amygdala, down through the throat and chest and the stomach down to the abdomen. So all along the spinal column. So we want to tell the vagus nerve that has the root in the ear to go to Vegas, go on vacation, calm down.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
people get really relaxed. People can fall asleep. People also can enjoy the results more than just immediately after and during the treatment too. So especially in this kind of case, if somebody's been really stressed out for a while in fight or flight, that's why it can be 6 to 8 treatments until the body is used to living in the parasympathetic rest, digest, repair, ideal homeostasis state of being.
Hmm.
So it's like training a puppy, right? The puppy doesn't get, I have to put a leash on and being potty trained and like what time we eat. The puppy's just like spazzing out, right? Everything's new and exciting, can't calm down. So it takes a while to train the puppy. So the nervous system that's all, right, hyperactive and freaked out from prolonged stress, same idea. So if you go for acupuncture once a week, but what's fun is if you learn the self-care, right, the breathing techniques, meditation, types of qigong or yoga, if you learn how to change your own state with the entertainment you choose, you can move along, even faster than that. And then you know how to keep yourself from getting stuck in fight or flight post-traumatic stress disorder. Then you're in control. So you don't have to spin out like that again. And then you can remain calm, ideally, no matter what comes. You can take yourself back and
Awesome.
be in command again. Yeah.
So Dr. Andrea, is there any other project or work that you're doing right now along which is connected to this as well that you'd want the audience to get a glimpse into?
Yeah, yeah. So on my website, chillaxom.com, chillaxom.com, if you look in the services tab, I have some online programs too. So one of the things that I offer too is a really fun 6-week Healthy Habits Challenge program that I run about every 6 weeks. So you can participate just for $20. That way I can give you prizes and anybody can be anywhere. And you get to self-evaluate your lifestyle. I have class material worksheets you can fill out. And it can start with just adding 1 to 3 very simple habits like we just discussed today. Can you get used to using a breathing technique when you feel tense to release it? And will
Hmm.
you commit to doing that for 6 weeks? And then you can come to a weekly meeting on Sundays for an hour. You can watch a video where I can give you, some other insights and tools too. And I also do some laser coaching as far as people bring their questions and their challenges and we can work on things, especially the mental emotional stress. If we change our perspective on our circumstances, they don't need to cause us stress anymore. The mental emotional turmoil stress comes from the way in which we're viewing our circumstances and judging them and reacting afraid. So I have a wonderful partner, Harlow Chip, And he also will co-facilitate with me on some of those 6-week challenge meetings too. And so me and Harlow Chip Reesberg, we work with the participants. We can give some insights in order to change a perspective, to come and reframe our relationship with our circumstances, to find a way to gain confidence and feel empowered, and let go of some of those limiting thoughts, ideas, and beliefs that can prevent the new habits from sticking. And so that's a fun program. Anybody, anywhere, can watch the recordings or participate in a live Zoom. And I wanted to make it accessible and affordable. And then on my YouTube channel, people can access through my website too. There's a whole bunch of videos. You can see videos how to do, body tapping. I do guided imagery meditation. There's a whole bunch of resources that I've provided you can access for free to start to become your own medicine and use some of these tools and get in the driver's seat of how you respond to life.
That is awesome, Dr. Andrea. So can you tell can you tell the audience how they can connect with you, and also once again, how they can connect with your work so that they know where to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, thank you. So the easiest thing to do is if you go to my website, you can click through on the contact page and you can shoot me an email. And then you can also click through the social media links there and you can find the YouTube channel and start to see some of those videos too
What
that
what
I've
is
put
your
up there.
what is your website again? If you can.
Yeah. So that's chillaxom, ChillaxOM.com. So we really want to chill, don't we?
Yeah.
And we want to relax. And then if you are aware of the traditions of yoga and Ayurvedic medicine, the concept of Om, right? Can we be at peace in the world? So the chillax Om is a state of being that we all can choose to on purpose to reach, and have that be the better response to the challenges in life, so that we're in a good place within ourselves to use our skills and experience to contribute to society and help each other, walk through whatever it is that we face. So there's a way to tap in there and find a community of like-minded people by joining groups like I have, and find a new way to respond to stress and reinvent our relationship with our circumstances, so we're not slaves of our circumstances.
No, totally. Like, I totally endorse everything that you're doing, and I would definitely want my audience to take a look into it, because I mean, we need to know how to master the stress in our life, because we
Yeah,
cannot control our external circumstances, but we can definitely control how we respond to it, you know?
exactly. And I
So,
like to call that mind-body mastery. It's really, that's the game that we're playing.
mhm, yeah. So, Dr. Andrea, I'm really glad that you took the time to come on this show, and I would want to invite you back at a later time, because what you're doing is amazing, and it's definitely impacting a lot of people on a positive level. This is what
Thank
more of what
you.
we need in the world, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I'm happy to come back. I can even share some of my material. We could do like some live class kind of experiential experiences too. I can lead people through stuff to do to
No,
evaluate their health and do some of the techniques that I teach. We could do something practical too, would be fun.
no, totally. And I want to conclude this podcast by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. For now. Bye for now. All right, thank you. Hey there, everyone. Thank you